this is the time to take your tornado precautions. It is moving towards Central City. Multiple confirmations that it has touched down, multiple videos and photos as well. You can see the rotation on radar still very strong. There's the most recent scan. That looks even stronger as it approaches Central City. So here's what's going on. This has not changed. Big area of high pressure off to our east. It's just bringing in so much moisture from the Gulf of Mexico, and this boundary is laid out, and that's just kind of the trigger for so many showers and storms. However, we're now getting another basically piece to the puzzle here. We now have a new tropical cyclone number 7 expected to turn into a tropical storm as it moves into the Gulf of Mexico. And unfortunately, this is going to pump up so much more moisture into our atmosphere. 4 to 7 inches, pretty much going to be likely for a big portion of our area. We could even see some locally higher numbers than that, something we'll keep a very close eye on. But for our far northern counties, still about 2 to 4 inches. Again, the bulk of this arriving later on this afternoon into the early evening. Now your evening commute does look like this. Moderate snow, 4 to 5 p.m. or so, and then that heavy snow is starting to become a little bit more likely as we head towards the second half of the evening commute. And finally, some dry air moving into our far southern counties. That's the good news. The bad news is we've already had so much rainfall. 6 inches in Waterloo, almost 5 in Center Point. Dubuque even just a little bit over 4 inches. Cedar Rapids here at our broadcast studio, we've had about 2.6 inches with Iowa City at 1.6. And all of this rainfall has done a lot to cause big problems, including in Cedar Falls. This was the scene earlier today. You can see just so much rainfall on the roadways. You know, we always tell people turn around, don't drown through flooded roadways, but this just happened so quick. Here are wind gusts within the last hour or so. We saw many areas over 40 miles per hour about 2 hours ago. Still though, upper 30s to mid 30s. So this is enough to take all of that fresh snow and cause it blowing across all the roadways. Visibilities right now are way down as well. Just 3-mile visibility in Cedar Rapids. But again, a lot of these are in the urban areas. Let's take you outside right now into more rural areas. This is Highway 30 right now in Benton County with our road warrior. Again, you can see the blowing and the drifting happening across Highway 30 there. He's even being a little bit protected here by trees. But again, you can see just how much that visibility gets reduced because of that. Now let's take you back a little bit earlier to that scene that we saw on Highway 30. This is what it looked like from our traffic cam here from the Iowa DOT. But see all this white here? This is what we call a ground blizzard. The wind is picking up all the snow and blowing it across the roadway. This actually looks like a cloud, but this is actually all of that snow that's being blown across the roadway. And again, if you're just joining us or you're watching CBS 2 News live at 5 o'clock, and the news is weather, we have that tornado warning now in effect for Benton, Buchanan, and Lynn counties. And Terry's pointing it here. That is that air circulation. We watched it get really strong, weaken a little bit. Definitely looks like it's starting to kind of increase in intensity yet again, coming very, very close to the Center Point area. About 10 minutes ago, we had a confirmed tornado on the ground via weather spotters northwest of Shellsburg and southeast of the Vinton area. Here's that circulation right now, again, moving very, very close to Center Point. So we've been calling you to action for the last about 10-15 minutes. If you're in Center Point, if you're in a mobile home, please seek a sturdier shelter. If you're inside your home, if you have a basement, that's the best place to be. But if you don't have a basement, other good options. You have an interior closet, a great option to be. That's a good, safe place to be. If you're heading there, maybe grab some shoes just in case the worst does happen. It's better to be over-prepared than under-prepared. And again, that circulation is approaching the I-380 corridor near Center Point. Here's the sky cam yet again. Again, doesn't look like there's anything on the ground. That's kind of an interesting feature, though, on the kind of the west side of this. This is that wall cloud right here that we, very frequently will call out in our severe weather coverage. This is kind of that part of the storm that's rotating, and tornadoes would come from the wall cloud. And it doesn't appear there's anything on the ground with that. But one other thing I want to mention is you can see the condensation from the nuclear power plant here moving up to that storm. That's kind of showing you that the storm is strengthening. Cedar Rapids right now at 44, Iowa City 46, Waterloo already up to 47 degrees. So again, temperatures on the way up, all fueled by plentiful sunshine. The radar and satellite view right now is just a clear sky across eastern Iowa. Off to our west, though, few clouds moving on in. So later on tonight, we'll call it partly cloudy to mostly clear at times. We'll top it out with our predictor. Again, by noon, you can see that southeast wind bringing in that warm air. Lots of clear skies out there. Continues through the evening commute as well. Lots of sunshine out there, so pack those sunglasses. You're going to need them, especially if you're going west on any highways. By tomorrow morning, you notice this little warm front moves on through, brings with it and a few clouds here and there. That'll help temperatures from really getting too cold overnight. Early morning commute looks very, very nice, albeit pretty warm. And then tomorrow afternoon, fueled by a strong southwest wind, temperatures will likely move into the 60-degree range all across eastern Iowa. More clouds move on in on Thursday, and then we'll kind of expect mostly cloudy skies, but temperatures should still be pretty mild all across our area. So for tomorrow, we're thinking something like this, mid-30s early on, already though climbing into the mid-50s by tomorrow afternoon in the lunch hour, and then by later on tomorrow afternoon, plentiful sunshine, temperatures in the low 60s, probably around 63 degrees or so will be your high temperature. That will be the warmest air by far since October. The downside is it will be pretty windy. We'll see wind gusts approach 30 to 35 miles per hour tomorrow afternoon, and would not be surprised if some areas peak near 40 miles per hour. So it's going to be mixing down a lot of warm air. The good news, if anything, with all the rain that we've had, is that the ground's pretty wet, so field fires won't be a huge concern tomorrow. All eyes, though, on our next weather maker. This arrives late this week, mainly Thursday evening when it starts to make its presence known. This warm front lifts into our area, as we mentioned before, brings in the warmer air and more moisture as well. And the boundary pretty much stalls out over eastern Iowa. And what we're going to see is showers and thunderstorms erupting along this boundary Thursday night and then through the day on Friday. Friday looks like they'll be dealing with a lot of rain across eastern Iowa. And then on Saturday, as cold air begins to get wrapped in the backside here, we could even see some light snow accumulation on Saturday morning. Nothing that you have to shovel, most likely, but it'll be kind of a nuisance to see snowflakes falling around after we just had temperatures in the 60s. Overall, your rainfall looks like this, a widespread ½ inch to an inch with higher totals in our far southern counties. Highway 30 and points south could see 1 to 2 inches of unneeded rainfall for sure. Temperatures tonight, mid-30s across the board. Warmer west with the south winds pumping in those temperatures. We'll call it partly cloudy and not as cold. Your 7-day forecast, 63 beautiful degrees tomorrow. Still 60 on Thursday with mostly cloudy skies. Thursday rain Thursday night through the day on Friday. Some light snow Friday night into Saturday morning. And then look at a nice cool weekend. Temperatures back down to the low 40s.
The railroad crossing right over here, you can actually see one of the warning lights. The warning lights right there is actually knocked down by the winds. Likely pretty strong to do that. It takes some pretty good winds to do that. It's actually blocking those railroad tracks. And just off to your right, CJ, you actually see that piece of metal that's actually wrapped around that sign there. That just shows you how strong the wind was. It's just taking that piece of sheet metal, wrapping it around objects like stop signs. We've seen multiple stop signs actually knocked down. So we keep walking this way. You can see this car here. Thankfully, the windows are intact, but you can see a big dent there on the windshield. The back window actually is blown out by some of the debris. You can see just so much roof debris, tree debris on the ground. And I think the worst damage we've seen so far is what we believe to be some type of warehouse. You can see the whole structure is knocked down, and there's actually cars that are stuck underneath part of that debris as well. To the right of that big structure, we got a lot of power lines down. Another thing we did ahead of time, we made sure there were no power lines down in this area. That was a big concern. I know Karen was talking earlier during our wall-to-wall coverage that we had a lot of power outages in the area with a lot of power lines down. So we'll keep kind of walking this way real quick. Just down the street, again, more tree damage, more power line damage. We're going to continue to kind of investigate what's going on here. So far, we've talked to a few people. We're not aware of any injuries this time. That's the very good news.
Basically, snowfall on the ground is 7 to 8 inches, and this snowpack goes all the way down to St. Louis. And this will modify the air tomorrow, which will have a big impact on whether we see snow or whether we see rain. Now, of course, if we do see rain, that does look more likely, especially in our far southern counties. That will have a big impact on our roads. Take a look at the road temperatures right now, 15 degrees. Many areas are in the teens or near 20 degrees. So if we do get that rain to start falling, all that rain will basically freeze on contact, create all sorts of slick problems out there. Right now across eastern Iowa, we have no issues on the roads. You can see a few Iowa DOT plows starting to kind of get the pre-treatment going for tomorrow. Tomorrow will be a much different story. It's definitely a mild day across eastern Iowa today, but the colder temperatures are arriving, and with the colder temperatures comes the wind. Right now, we're consistently gusting over 20 miles per hour, times gusting to 30 miles per hour. Our peak gust since we've been here, 44. Similar wind gusts we had on Tuesday that caused all sorts of blowing and drifting snow, the same winds that caused road closures because of all the snow that's on the ground. But why are we dealing with the blowing and drifting today across much of the area? Well, the mild temperatures temperatures that we had today actually melted the top layer of this snow, and it's since become kind of a layer of ice. You can see the big chunks here, much harder to fly in the wind when it's frozen like this.
Yeah, if you can hear me, we are right by the Marengo area. I've been chasing tornadoes for 9 years. This is probably one of the best wall clouds I've ever seen, especially in the state of Iowa. This thing is definitely rotating. This thing is ripping very, very hard. Obviously on radar, it's very, very strong. On the right side of the wall cloud, you can see the inflow clouds kind of going into the storm, rising into the storm, definitely rotating. You're definitely looking at rotation with this wall cloud. Just doing a quick zoom out. I mean, you can just see how the whole storm is like just striated. I mean, this whole storm is rotating right now. If there's any reason we should be interrupting program right now, it is because this storm that is right now in Iowa County. Again, right now we are right near the Marengo area, looking off to our south and west. Right now the countdown clock has started counting on down to a 1:49 a.m. Central Time launch here at the Kennedy Space Center from pad 39A behind me. You can really just feel the excitement starting to build here because this launch has really been such a long time coming.
We're about ready to be a part of something that is truly historic.
American astronauts will be riding American rockets into space again, ending an 8-year drought. But instead of NASA doing the heavy lifting, the space agency is partnering with private companies SpaceX and Boeing in an initiative called the Commercial Crew Program.
We would not be here where we were today if we didn't have SpaceX's ingenuity. The Commercial Crew Program teams endeavor to try to do things a little bit different.
Lift off.
This was America's last ride into space. The space shuttle was able to ferry 7 astronauts into orbit as well as a lot of cargo. Since it was retired in 2011, the U.S. had to hitch a ride on Russian rockets. And that dependence ends in 2019 when the SpaceX Falcon 9 carries a Dragon 2 capsule up to the International Space Station. It can carry up to 7 astronauts and about 100 pounds of cargo. It'll do it cheaper and allow more research to be done at the space station.
This is called a search coil magnetometer.
The University of Iowa has benefited from private companies and the International Space Station, most recently with the deployment of HaloSat. But future projects are already in the works, including a recent $1 million grant awarded to build space-based instruments that could study Earth's magnetic field.
Because you have all of this energy moving through the system, you can do things like you can disrupt the electrical grid and you can cause blackouts. You can create radiation, which can interfere with satellites that are trying to operate.
Now, the magnetic field research project being done at the University of Iowa called Chimera can also help the humans that are going up aboard the crew capsule up here because it'll help them better understand the radiation that they'll be experiencing. Again, get ready to stay up late, 1:49 a.m. Central Time. The river flood forecast models are really only as good as all the data that goes into them. And to make sure you get a complete picture of all this snow that's on the ground, you really do need a combination of low-tech measurement and high-tech observation.
So we found a spot that's representative of the snow cover in the yard, and we're going to take the 8-inch bucket, put it through, and get a snow core.
We've talked about snow water equivalent, but measuring it is not as easy as just using a ruler to measure the snow depth.
Now we have to clear all around it.
One way to collect this information is to grab a snow core sample.
Once you start to get about a foot or more of the snowpack, then we need to use the bigger gauge because this obviously won't catch all of it.
Make sure I don't overflow if I have that much.
As we melt it down, we'll pour it into the other tube with the funnel and then take a measurement with a ruler.
So we stick that down. It's very apparent where it comes out to on the ruler. 1 point.
It's a 16-inch snowpack with 2 inches of water is less of a concern for flooding than a 16-inch snowpack with 3 inches of water.
But there's a lot of gaps. There's not everyone lives somewhere that they can take a manual snow measurement.
Enter the Twin Otter aircraft. When it comes to spring river forecasting, a lot of people, of course, think of river gauges, the amount of rain that has fallen and the snow depth being measured at the ground. But aircraft like this capture another very important piece of data, and that's the water equivalent of all that snow that's on the ground.
This machine here has a series of crystals inside it.
This National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration aircraft is equipped with a special machine that measures the radiation levels naturally emitted from the soil, called gamma radiation. Twice a year, this aircraft flies over a line, or a specific path designated at risk of flooding by the National Weather Service.
So we hit those lines in the fall, and then again lines in the winter as well. Comparing the two SWE numbers, the soil moisture, and then the snow water equivalent numbers, gets an idea of how much water is in the snow itself.
Readings are taken over parts of the Midwest and areas of southern Canada. The mission, which takes a few weeks to conduct, requires 2 pilots, and the data can be collected just by using a tablet at the front.
The pilot, who's seen in the right-hand seat, will be backing up the pilot flying, kind of keeping them an eye on terrain and everything else like that, but they're also primarily operating the equipment. They're operating this tablet right here, which is our interface with the equipment in the back, to kind of make sure that the health of the crystals and the flight lines are being collected, doing their quality check, and everything else like that.
So every day when we land, we get the data from this box to our computer. We send that over to the National Weather Service, and they incorporate that almost immediately into their flood models.
Because that fills in the gaps that we can put within our models and have a higher confidence level in our forecasting.
As thousands of people and members of the media descended upon the Florida Space Coast to watch a historic launch.
10, 9, 8.
The SpaceX Falcon 9 rocket came to life, breathing oxygen as it was fueled on the warm March morning.
1. Ignition. Liftoff.
Right on time, night turned to day as America's next ride to space took off, marking the first time a crew-capable vehicle launched from U.S. soil since 2011.
A big night for the United States of America, a great night for NASA. What today really represents is a new era in spaceflight.
SpaceX founder Elon Musk made a rare Kennedy Space Center press conference appearance early Saturday morning, in which he accounted the hardships of SpaceX and how far they have come.
First 3 launches of Falcon 1 didn't work. Then the 4th one, we scraped together some parts, and if that one hadn't worked, that would have been it for us. I think it's important that we become a spacefaring civilization and be out there among the stars. And I think that's one of the things that, makes people excited about the future. And we want the things that are in science fiction novels and movies not to be science fiction forever. We want them to be real one day.
The American astronauts, which will ride the next crewed SpaceX mission later this year, watched the launch on site and said they felt confident about the outcome of the launch and for their next big test.
Seeing a success like this definitely gives us a lot of confidence in the future, and like folks have described, really this is about predicting what the vehicle is going to do and then testing it and making sure that those two things match up.
We can confirm hard capture is complete.
The SpaceX Crew Dragon spacecraft successfully docked with the International Space Station early Sunday morning, another huge milestone for the mission. It will spend the next 5 days docked before coming back to Earth early Friday.
As the total mission is successful, we could see crewed spaceflight once again from U.S. soil as early as July. In Kennedy Space Center, I'm Weather First meteorologist Stewart, CBS 2 News.